Hello and welcome to Preludes. My name is Angel Correa. I'm the Artistic Director of Philadelphia Ballet. And today we're going to be chatting about our upcoming ballet, Balanchine. Today with me, I have Jacqueline Callahan, Martha Kahneman, and Charles Askegaard. Thank you so much for joining us. I have a question for all of you. What is your first experience with the Balanchine Ballet, and what was your thoughts when that happened?
My first experience was when I was a kid here in Philadelphia, and my mom took me to see George Balanchine's The Nutcracker. And I was about 4, and it was really my inspiration to start dancing. And so I've been inspired by George Balanchine my entire life and ended up training at his school. So he was really one of the reasons why I started, and seeing Philadelphia Ballet dance was another reason as well.
My first experience was when I began with the company in 1973, and I was asked to fill in for a pianist that had just left for 2 weeks, and I got put in rehearsals of Bizet Symphony in C and Ramonda Variations. And all I knew at that time was plie. So it was an immersion like I will never forget. But I was particularly struck by how the entire room moved rhythmically as one unit. I could feel that, and it was helpful to me when I was playing. I very much enjoyed it.
Did you actually work with our founder, the founder of our company? With
I did. Barbara Weisberger, I did, yes.
Which she was a prodigy of,
That's right.
Mr. George Balanchine.
No, I did, yeah.
What about you, Charles? Because you actually danced with New York City Ballet, which is the house of George Balanchine.
I did for 14 years after I was with American Ballet Theater. For me, as a student, I encountered Balanchine when where I grew up, Minnesota Dance Theater. They performed Serenade. But it's all women, obviously, except for the few men who were in the company at the time. And I remember seeing them perform it, and it was just absolutely beautiful. But then when I became a professional dancer, the first ballet that we did with American Ballet Theater that I did was Ballet Imperial, which was kind of interesting because that's the ballet that we're doing this year. Yeah.
Yeah, and all of his ballets are very different from each other, and especially with this program, the 3 ballets that we put together, they're completely different from one from another. Jackie, what is your approach when you're doing something that is more classical, like Ballet Imperial, to something that is a little bit more neoclassical, like Who Cares or Agon?
For me, I guess I'll speak on Agon first. I'm doing the pas de trois in Agon, so it's the leotard ballets are much more serious, and you don't really smile. There's a certain way that you walk that Colleen was telling us about. They're much more athletic. You have to do huge movements, really, use your hips, and I think that makes the ballet really exciting. And then in Ballet Imperial, it's much more about the technique, the footwork, all of the precision that he focused on a lot. It's much more musical, those ballets. Agon is very much about the counts and the athleticism. But doing all 3 in one program is such a joy because he was such a creative genius in everything that he did. And to see his range all in one night is going to be really amazing.
And for you, Martha, to be playing something so classical like Tchaikovsky, to go into Gershwin, to go into Stravinsky, how do you see that arch of connection between all these 3 ballets, and what do you think that each one is very different from the other, especially with the piano and the challenges that comes with it?
Choreographically, I think the approach to the music is very similar between the 3, but the styles are so different, obviously, that it makes a huge difference in how I approach the music. For something like Ballet Imperial, which I'm not playing, but it would be in a true symphonic Tchaikovsky style, very, very full, very romantic, even though I believe it's a classical ballet. The music is more romantic in style, so it's fuller, it's lyrical. Something like Agon is more abstract and very contemporary harmonies, very difficult subdivisions of rhythm. Sometimes between the 2 hands, the subdivisions don't really line up. You have to split the beat in 2 different ways in 2 different hands. It's a whole different texture. I'd say the Stravinsky is more textural. And for who cares, it's basically evocative of the big band era in America. And it recalls life in New York City in the 30s and 40s, I would say. So that's a challenge to make all 3 styles successful on a piano, especially when they're orchestral pieces.
So talking about the different scores of the music and the difference between Stravinsky and Gershwin and Tchaikovsky, when you're rehearsing these ballets with the dancers, how do you approach something like Agon, that the music is so difficult and they have to count it? Yes.
Agon is an incredibly difficult piece because of the complexity of the music and getting everybody to be on it is very, very difficult because you're counting not 8s or 6s or 4s or whatever it is. It's not straightforward at all. We're counting sometimes up to 20, right, Jackie? And we then back to a silent 2 with picking up on the 11, and then back to 3 7s, and then a series of 4s or whatever it is. But then getting everybody to do that at the same time, and then at some points you have in the first section you have 3 sections of dancers doing very different things around the stage. And so basically the entire ballet is counted that way, except for one section, and that's the duet, the pas de deux, the main pas de deux. That's done primarily to the music and musical sounds, the spaces in between, those types of things. There's like natural breaths if there are silences. And that duet is very, very interesting because it's
kind of sensual.
It has sensuality. It also has confidence. It has soft and supple movements. It's got very extreme positions for the female dancer, and then also it has very, very fast, strong movement that then back to a very, very quiet ending with the couple embracing. And
I think the challenge is also having the dancers counting without counting with their mouths, because sometimes you see them dancing and they have 1, 2, 3. Yeah,
I know. That's the first step, and,
and
as long as they learn the counts, that's great. And then, okay, now we're not going to count it with our mouths anymore.
It's very interesting that in the 3 movements in the middle, the 2 pas de trois and the pas de deux, that they all start with that same theme.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is,
really,
and Agon means like the contest, and so it's sort of like a fanfare, as like here's the entrance of this group, and then see what they do, and then the next group, and it's the same. You're right, it's the same.
It ties it all together.
Yes, it does. It really, really is interesting. Yeah.
And that's something that I wanted to ask you, Jackie. How do you feel about working with Colleen Neri now that you have worked for a few years now? She's been staging a lot of our Balanchine productions. How do you feel about working with her with other stagers?
It's pretty amazing that she can come in such a short amount of time, and we always give her a really tough program to stage with huge ballets, and she does it so quickly. She knows what she's doing. She's really precise. She knows what she wants. Like the very first day of Agon rehearsal, she gave everyone a notebook and was like, these are the counts, you have to memorize them. And so just the way that she teaches, she's very detailed. And I think it makes all the dancers look their best. And it's definitely really challenging for her because she has such a wide range of dancers. Like kind of like you were saying, no one is just standing in the back. And in Ballet Imperial, for example, the principal ballerina is doing these hard, super fast, precise steps. And she has to do it, and then the apprentice in the back line also has to do it. And you have to do it just as well. So Colleen is really good at pushing us to be our best and like sort of instilling that Balanchine technique in everyone.
Yeah, because it's a very short time to rehearse and to prepare, because also we're doing at the same time other productions in another studio, so you have to go from very classical to balancing to very modern. So playing all around, it's what you know, it makes it challenging for the dancers, but also a lot of fun, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. For you, Martha, preparing before going into the room for a balancing ballet or for a composition like Stravinsky, how do you prepare for that, and how do you prepare also when you have to do it on stage? Is there a process that you have to do before you go into the studio? You learn as you're doing it with the dancers? How do you approach that?
Well, it requires, if I'm learning a piece from scratch, I have to do all that work privately at home, because the process for a musician is a bit the opposite than it is for dance, because the dancers have to do it at the final tempo, or because they're subject to gravity, they're going to fall over if it's too slow. But for us, learning, we have to slow everything down to rock bottom, to figure out fingering, to figure out the rhythm. In Stravinsky's case, is very complex rhythms. I was going to add to what Charles was saying about the Stravinsky, the counts. For us, I mean, we have different types of counts in music, but the meter will shift sometimes every measure to something new, and the unit of counting changes. It'll be half the value of the previous measure, so you have to absorb all that and hear it and all that. That takes a long time, takes weeks, sometimes months, and but when you come to the studio, you have to be able to indicate a sketch of the whole thing in its finished tempo, and that's hard.
It is, yeah. I'm sure it is.
The music of Agon is just extraordinarily complex.
It is.
Oh, there's a dance in that when I had to learn it, and I still don't know if I could do it, but it has castanets, and so my right hand, I was playing the notes of the thing with my right hand, and my left hand, I was tapping a box on top of the piano to make it sound like the castanets, and then trying to coordinate it, and that was just so
incredible.
Hard.
Yeah.
That was hard, yeah, but fun.
Well, just to finish, if you have to define the choreography of George Balanchine with one word, which word would it be? A difficult one.
Energy.
Visual music.
That's a good. That's very, very good. It's almost impossible on it. It's really because you see this program, and it's wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, freedom, I think that is also a great way to express. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you at the Academy of Music for George Balanchine's program at the Philadelphia Ballet.